You know that feeling when you're watching the news or just scrolling and it feels like the really big decisions, the ones shaping your life, they're happening somewhere else.
Yeah, like by people you don't really know
Hmm.
and you don't have much say.
Exactly. And if you've ever wished for, well, a more direct line, a real chance to influence things, then you're definitely in the right place today.
Uh-huh. Because we're doing a deep dive into a concept that tries to tackle exactly that.
We are. We've been digging into some, frankly, really fascinating sources on something called Meritocratic Direct Democracy.
It sounds quite grand, doesn't it? But the core idea is looking at how maybe technology could fundamentally shift things, shift governance, put
Mhm.
more direct control back with everyday citizens.
Okay, Meritocratic Direct Democracy. It is ambitious. So the mission for us today really is to unpack what that actually means.
For you, for everyone listening.
Right. How does it aim to fix some of those frustrations we feel with the current systems, and what are the actual nuts and bolts?
You mean like the digital platforms, the citizen assemblies, that sort of thing?
Precisely. We're talking about maybe moving away from just, ticking a box every few years.
Towards something more continuous, more hands-on.
That's the idea we're exploring.
And the material we've looked at, it really starts from this shared concern, this feeling that traditional representative democracy, well, it has its merits, obviously, but it often leaves people feeling a bit removed.
Disconnected.
Yeah, disconnected from the action. There's this sense, it came up in the sources, that your vote, while it is important, it can feel like a pretty blunt instrument sometimes.
Oh, definitely. You elect someone and then poof. There's often a gap, isn't there?
There is. And you see the career politicians, the influence of, let's be honest, big money in campaigns.
And just that feeling that your individual view isn't really getting factored in day to day. You want more than just that one moment at the ballot box.
Exactly. And that's where these sources propose a pretty fundamental shift
Hmm.
towards much more direct citizen participation in actually making the decisions.
Now, direct citizen input isn't totally new, is it? I mean, you think back.
No, not entirely. You got historical examples like ancient Athens, right?
Mm.
Where citizens directly debated and voted on laws.
Or even today, look at Switzerland with their referendums.
Exactly. Referenda are just a regular part of their political life. Shows there's an appetite for it.
But the sources we're looking at, they really emphasize how digital technology could be a huge game changer here.
Oh, absolutely. It potentially allows for that kind of direct involvement, but on a scale that, frankly, wasn't possible before.
Right, like nationwide or citywide.
But importantly, it's not just about everyone voting on every single tiny thing. I mean, that could get chaotic fast.
Yeah, overwhelming, impractical.
So the specific model being explored is often called deliberative direct democracy. And that word deliberative is key.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means combining that broad participation, the direct voting, with structured ways for people to discuss things thoughtfully.
Thoughtfully being the operative word there.
Yes. And having access to reliable information, expert analysis even, and building in safeguards.
Yeah.
Protections against, say, populism running wild or
Tyranny of the majority.
precisely. Fairness has to be built in.
Okay, so how do you guarantee that thoughtful discussion part? Because let's face it, you look at online comments sometimes and it's not always reasoned debate.
That's a huge challenge, and it's where this idea of sortition comes in. It's actually a really interesting concept with, again, deep historical roots.
Sortition, like sorting.
Kind of. Think back to Athens again. A lot of their public officials weren't elected. They were chosen by lot, randomly.
Really? Why?
Well, the thinking was that elections can favor, the wealthy, the charismatic, the well-connected. Sortition was seen as fairer, giving every citizen an equal chance to serve.
Huh. So it's a bit like being picked for jury duty, but for running things.
There's definitely a parallel, yeah.
Yeah.
The modern idea is to use sortition to create these things called representative and mini-publics or citizen assemblies.
Mini publics. Okay.
Small groups of people, chosen totally at random from the population. But then, crucially, they get the time, the resources, the expert briefings, everything needed to really dig into complex policy issues.
Ah, I see. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because these aren't politicians with party lines to toe or campaigns to worry about.
Exactly. They're meant to be just ordinary people, a cross-section, a microcosm of the population, focused on finding solutions for the common good, free from electoral pressures.
Is there anywhere this has actually been tried? Like for real?
Yes. The sources point to the Irish Citizens Assembly, ran from 2016 to 2018.
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about that.
99 ordinary Irish citizens, randomly selected. And they spent months tackling really tough, complex, often divisive issues, like abortion law reform.
Wow. And what happened?
Their recommendations, which were really well-reasoned, actually led directly to national referendums and quite significant changes in Irish law. Kind of proves the concept.
That regular people, given good info and a proper space to talk, can come up with sensible solutions.
That's the takeaway. They can handle complexity.
Okay, that Irish example is pretty compelling. So these citizen assemblies handle the deep dives, the deliberation. But how does the wider public, everyone else, stay involved? That's where the tech comes back in, the platforms.
Precisely. Imagine maybe a national or could be citywide online space,
Yeah.
but purpose-built for this, for verified citizens.
Verified. Okay, so not just random trolls.
Right. And on this platform, you could access clear, neutral summaries of complex issues. Think of it like an open source civil service briefing.
Okay, accessible info.
Then you could participate in structured discussions, maybe moderated, and ultimately cast your vote on specific proposals that emerge.
So it's trying to be a more organized, more informed version of online discussion, not just shouting into the void.
Exactly. Maybe even using AI tools to help moderate, keep things on track, respectful.
And are there examples of these platforms already?
Yeah, the sources mention things like Decidim, used in Spain, Barcelona, I think, and Taiwan, in Taiwan. Platforms where citizens are already using online tools to deliberate and influence policy. It's not pure sci-fi.
Right, precedents exist.
And to make sure people trust this whole digital side, the integrity of it all. The sources talk about using blockchain technology.
Blockchain for secure voting.
Potentially, yes. As a kind of super secure, transparent digital ledger. It could record votes, make the whole process auditable so everyone feels confident their vote counted and the results are legit.
Okay, that makes sense. But even with assemblies and platforms, how do you ensure the system is actually, responsive, that there's accountability?
A critical point, absolutely. The sources propose creating citizen oversight committees. And guess how they'd be selected?
Let me guess. Sortition. Random selection again.
You got it. So you'd have this Oversight Council, as some of the material calls it, essentially a rotating people's eye on government.
A watchdog, run by citizens.
Pretty much. They'd have the power to monitor how policies are actually being carried out, get access to documents, maybe even audit agencies.
Wow, that's significant power.
And there's another layer too, referendum-based recall.
Meaning?
Meaning, like in Switzerland, if enough citizens feel a law is wrong or a decision needs rethinking, they could trigger a direct vote to potentially reverse it, or even recall an official.
How many citizens would that take?
The idea is it would be proportional. Maybe, say, 1 or 2% of eligible voters signing a petition could be enough to force that public reconsideration.
That really does tilt the power balance, doesn't it, back towards the public?
That's the intention.
And what about the people who serve on these assemblies or oversight bodies? How are they kept accountable?
Good question. The sources suggest performance-based accountability, using clear metrics, maybe public feedback.
Like a report card.
Sort of, yeah. A transparent report card at the end of their service, showing their contributions, the outcomes. So everyone, including future participants, can learn and adapt the system.
Now, one of the maybe most radical ideas in all this is the potential for political parties, as we know them, to just become obsolete.
Yeah, that's a big one. The vision is a shift away from governance dominated by rigid party structures.
So how would that even work? No parties.
The idea is it becomes more about continuous citizen engagement on issues. Instead of these big fixed party blocks, you might see more fluid, dynamic coalitions forming around specific problems or proposals.
People coming together just for that issue, then maybe disbanding.
Potentially, or reforming around the next issue. And policy ideas wouldn't necessarily come from a party manifesto.
Where would they come from?
From anywhere. Any citizen, any civic group could propose something on the digital platform.
And it would gain traction based on merit, public support, upvotes.
Exactly, based on the idea itself and how much support it gathers. Then the promising ones go through that deeper deliberation process we talked about.
The hope being less partisan gridlock.
Yeah.
More focus on just solving problems.
That's the core hope, yes. A shift towards more pragmatic, bottom-up problem solving, reducing that kind of us versus them factionalism.
Okay. The sources also mention something called the GL game. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, the GL game. Think of it less as a literal game and more like a conceptual framework. a way to try and integrate all these different pieces we've discussed.
Like bringing together the sortition, the deliberation, the digital platforms, maybe AI assistants.
Exactly, into one sort of cohesive functional system. It's about structuring and maybe even incentivizing that meaningful citizen participation.
And part of that incentive structure, these civic coins, what are they about?
Ah, yes. Civic coins are envisioned as a kind of non-transferable social credit. You'd earn them by participating actively.
Like volunteering, serving on an assembly, engaging thoughtfully online.
Things like that. The really interesting angle is that they could potentially shift influence away from purely financial lobbying.
Towards demonstrated civic engagement. So your influence comes from participation, not your wallet.
That's the disruptive idea behind it, a fundamental rethink of influence.
And there were a couple of other acronyms, PASS and Ikigai.
Right, quickly. PASS likely relates to the specific protocols for the selection processes, ensuring they're fair, representative, diverse, all the mechanics of getting citizens involved properly.
And Ikigai sounds Japanese.
It is. It stands for Individualized Knowledge Initiative Groups and Assessment for Interests. It's a concept about maybe organizing citizen input based on their specific expertise, passions, interests, letting people contribute where they feel they can be most effective.
Okay, matching skills and interests to the tasks makes sense. And this whole massive shift, it's aiming for something bigger than just like economic growth, right? The sources talk about eudaimonic metrics.
That's absolutely right. It points to a potential shift in how we even measure success as a society.
Away from just GDP.
Away from solely focusing on GDP, yes. The idea is to prioritize these eudaimonic metrics, broader indicators of human flourishing.
Like what? Health, education.
Exactly. Public health, education levels, environmental quality, citizen satisfaction, community engagement, overall well-being.
So valuing the quality of life, not just the economic output.
That's the underlying philosophy, a focus on human flourishing.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've explored this vision. Meritocratic direct democracy, it hinges on direct citizen involvement via digital platforms.
Uses random selection, sortition for these deliberative assemblies and oversight bodies.
Envisions potentially moving beyond traditional political parties.
And ultimately aims to measure success by looking at overall citizen well-being. Eudaimonia.
Well, it's a pretty significant departure from how things mostly work now.
It's certainly a bold vision, no question. And the potential impact on you, on society, it's considerable.
The possibility of a democracy that feels more engaged, more responsive.
Maybe better reflects diverse views and actual decisions, and just fundamentally reorients priorities towards, well, human flourishing in its broadest sense.
So, as everyone listening considers all this, maybe take a moment. Think about how your voice, your participation, could actually shape things in a system like this.
What challenges would come up? Because there would be challenges, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. But also, what incredible opportunities might it unlock? If you had a truly well-informed, actively engaged citizenry really taking the reins.
It's definitely something to mull over. A lot to think about there.